right, so we are going to be taking a look at VocAlign Ultra. This will be using the ARA2 or ARA2 technology and the new integration in Studio One version 5.1.2. Okay, so what is the new integration about? Well, it's pretty simple. If you want to use VocAlign Ultra and you like to use the menu commands, edit with VocAlign, then you need to be running Studio One version 5.1.2 and above in order to support VocAlign Ultra. That being said, let's talk about a couple key differences and then we'll get right into it. So first things first, the main and biggest difference is that VocAlign Ultra is now using the flagship algorithms developed by Synchro Arts that are coming straight from Revoice Pro. So these are night and day different, and this is the main reason that I used to use Revoice Pro for all of my main work whenever I was working on lead vocals, because the time compression and expansion algorithms in Revoice are vastly superior to what we had in VocAlign Pro. Now, secondly, we also have the ability to adjust the strength of the time alignment, meaning that we can go anywhere from 100% fully aligned. We could back that off to something like 70 or 50%. That is a huge difference between previous versions of VocAlign. It used to be all or nothing. It was always 100%, always completely aligned. So if you were ever in the situation where you thought, man, that's awesome, but I really wish I could back off of that alignment a bit in terms of the strength, then VocAlign Ultra is the answer to that problem. And last but not least, we have the ability to not only use the timing from a guide track, but we can also use the pitch. And that's something we're going to take a look at in a moment. So first things first, how do we do it? Well, it's very simple and it's very much the same. We can select all of the events. We use our shortcut to edit with VocAlign, and I've just basically handed off all these events and loaded an instance of VocAlign Ultra on everything. Biggest change for me here is we have a nice editor that is encapsulated in the Studio One ARA editor, and that's resizable and it dynamically adjusts. This is a big change for me. It's something I'm really happy to see because that means that there's no fumbling about with windows and having to move things. This docks nicely in the editor section and we can work really fluently. Okay, we still have the same click, hold, drag and drop style workflow that we had in VocAlign Pro. Another thing that we can do is we can just select the event and we can click capture. But one main change that we have is because VocAlign Ultra allows us to work with the timing or the pitch, you have to be really careful when you're selecting multiple events to send them over. You have to make sure that you've selected the proper preset before you do that. Because if, for example, I wanted to do something where I'm taking the pitch and the timing, I would have to go in and change these all unless I choose the right preset first. So to start off with though, let's go to we have the double and we have the harmony section, and the basic differences here are whether you need the pitch or just timing. So I'm going to go into the harmony section and I'm going to choose tight timing. This is the preset that will be applied. Now, once I have these multi-selected, I can either click, hold, and drag them. Let me push escape here, or with all of them selected, I can click capture. All of them are being processed and they are immediately ready for playback. So I could play this back now.
My heart is an ocean, nothing can save it.
So these have all been aligned. It happened instantly and it happened in one shot. Couple things when you're working with multiple tracks that you've sent over, there's a couple different ways that we can know which audio events or which tracks we're working in. If you select an event in Studio One, notice that this event name changes, and you'll see that if you have different parameters, like for example, let's change these ever so slightly, you'll notice that as I move through, we have different parameters and they update on the GUI. That's one way that you can do it. Another way you can do it is by right-clicking in the dub section, you can choose the different audio track. So here's our lead Vox 2, which is this one over here. Here is lead Vox 3, and here is our harm 1. Once you kind of understand this, then it's pretty easy to get things working in terms of adjusting the preset or making any tweaks or changes to this. So this is our match timing section. Now, what I want to do is I want to take a look at this track over here. Let's go to our Vox harm.
My heart is an ocean.
Let's play that against our lead vocal.
My heart is an ocean.
And again, we can either select the event or we can right click and choose from this drop down menu. We can choose that audio file. One of the other things that they've added is they've added a couple cool things with respect to some creative effects. So if anybody who works in modern vocals and pop production, you notice that there's a lot of adjustments of formant. So we could, for example, do a formant shift directly from within VocAlign Ultra. I could take this all the way down. That red line is showing that it is rendering the file. It's immediately ready for playback.
My heart is an ocean.
I could go the other way. Rendering's done.
My heart is an ocean.
So this can be useful if you wanted to do creative effects for anything at all. And this happens a lot. Now, another thing you'll see is we have the option to have this overlaid waveform. If I zoom in a little bit, you can see exactly what this is. Basically, you have a blue outline, which represents the guide track, and then the yellow waveform. You see that kind of the guide track overlay is superimposed over top of it, and you can see exactly how the yellow dub track is lining up to your guide track. So that's really useful. Take a look at this section over here. Watch what happens when I move this up. See how this just shifted into place? Or if I pull this back a bit, you can see the natural variances of this track kind of start to creep through. So this visual overlay is a huge game changer for me in terms of being able to see exactly what's happening within VocAlign. Now, I also mentioned that we have the match pitch and that these preferences, or rather these presets, are really well thought out. You can choose whichever one represents the task that you need to do, or you could start off with something just like tight timing, and then you could tweak each one of these individually. So one of the cool things that we can do, let's have a listen to these two tracks together.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it.
We can choose to match pitch. And it really doesn't matter what the tracks are because we have a lot of preferences that will help us out with this. So I'm going to enable match pitch, and this brings this second set of parameters into the equation. Now from here, we have other options. Like I could lower this by a whole octave. Let me solo that out.
My heart is.
Or I could bring it up by an entire octave.
My heart is an ocean.
Now keep in mind, these can be done in combination with the formant changes, for example.
My heart is an ocean.
Okay, let's solo this out. Let's take formant off and let's bring our transpose back to 0. Now another thing we have is our pitch ranges over here in the advanced view. You have a basic view and you have an advanced view. Basic just basically gives you some really basic parameters if you're just doing things like, tight timing, or maybe you want to do a basic run where you're using the timing and the pitch. Basic is great, but for most things I like to have the advanced visible. So for example, I can choose to have a normal guide, and then my dub in this case, it's actually a low-pitched male vocal. So when I adjust the pitch ranges here, I actually improve the quality of what VocAlign Ultra is able to do with this particular track. I can adjust the difference in the pitch target as well.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it.
So this is using mode 1, and it's using the nearest octave. So we could also choose absolute, and basically what this would do is it would force this lower pitched vocal to match this lead vocal.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
Keep in mind, we'll take match pitch off.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
And then of course we can use a different combination of things. We could add a formant shift to that as well if I wanted to increase the formant.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
So this is the thing about VocAlign Ultra, is it's so much more than just time alignment. It actually has a lot of creative potential in terms of what you can do with it in vocal production, for example. All right, so once you're happy with everything and you've got everything sounding the way you want, it pretty much works the same as we would expect. We could then open up our macro tab, and under audio editing, we can render all the event effects, and then everything has been rendered and we have the handy option to be able to restore this. So now we have our vocal production, it's done. We can pop it in against the instrumental.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
Okay. Let's revert this session back. I'm going to revert the changes. Let's delete those files. And I want to show you one more thing really quickly, because this really kind of highlights the differences. Close our track inspector. I'm going to activate 2 additional tracks. So these tracks over here, This one, let's leave this one down here actually. This is something where I've basically created a brand new audio event for the lead vocal and also a brand new audio event for the vocals low, because I want to do some creative processing that kind of showcases things a little bit better. Let's hide our main lead vocal for a moment. And let me open up this one. And the idea here is that right now, these tracks, as they sit against each other, they're all sung with the same melody, but they need time alignment. But what happens if you either changed the melody altogether for a creative intent, or if there were some tuning issues in some of these doubles? That's what I want to focus on now. So first things first, I'm going to actually send this over to Revoice Pro. And let's go into full screen. I'm going to make this a warp region. Revoice Pro, for anybody who hasn't used it, similar to VocAlign Ultra, and gives you the ability to do tuning as well, and time alignment manually if you wanted to do that. So I'm going to make some changes here. First things first, let's play this.
My heart is an ocean.
Okay, so this is the first area. I'm going to zoom in, and what I want to do is I want to take this and I want to change it in terms of, let's make it a little bit higher. So I've actually changed the tuning. I want to keep it in the same scale, but a different melody.
My heart is an ocean.
Okay, let me just grab this and let's snap that tuning to 100%. I'm just going to smooth out a couple areas here. And I think here, this part as well.
Nothing can save.
I want to take this one and let's highlight this and let's make this 100%.
Ocean, nothing can save it. Nothing.
I'm just going to grab this vibrato and let's smooth that out a little bit. And I want to do the same thing over here that I did over here. So we'll grab this second note and we'll snap this to 100%.
Nothing at all.
Okay, so effectively, I have just changed the tuning. Let's bypass.
Nothing can save it.
And the new tuning.
Nothing can save it.
Okay, so now that I have this done in Revoice Pro is doing ARA as well. We can go back to Studio One, and it's going to be actually playing the Revoice Pro cache in the Studio One timeline. So I'm going to render this. I want to basically bake that into the file. So we've just now changed the tuning on this lead vocal.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it.
Okay, so now that we've changed the tuning, this is kind of where the second part of VocAlign Ultra really comes into play. I'm going to select all of these files over here. In fact, let's select everything, and we will add VocAlign Ultra to everything by just using my keyboard shortcut. First things first, I want to bring my guide over. Again, we can just drag and drop that in. And now I really need to kind of think about what I want to do in these different cases. So for both of these ones over here, did I add VocAlign in? Okay, so for both of these, I want to choose the preset to just be tight timing. Now I'm going to click capture. Okay, so now these have been time aligned to my lead vocal. Now for these ones, I want to do something slightly different. So I'm going to select all of the events on both of these tracks. And for this, I'm going to go to vocal and let's take a look at the presets and see if we can find what we want. Okay, so we have slightly loose timing and pitch. So let's go ahead and use that one as our starting point. And now those, I'm going to just click capture. And now we have everything that's been added. So now if I right click, you'll see that I have harm 1, Vox low harm, lead Vox 2, and lead Vox 3. And then of course we can also click the events and that will update in my VocAlign GUI. So let's stretch this out a little bit. Okay, so if I solo my lead vocal against these two tracks now, they should be perfectly time aligned.
My heart is an ocean.
Okay, now this one over here is matching the timing to 100%, so that's good. Let's select this one over here, and I want to do something different. I'm going to make a formant shift in. Actually, let's leave the formant for now because I want to show you one more thing that's pretty cool. I'm going to bring the pitch back in, and we also have the option to do a monotone. Now this to me is pretty cool because we can basically bring the music in and we can try to match the key, and let's try to have this droning on one particular tone that's in key of the song. And let's take the formant out for now, but we're going to add that back in. Okay, so let's try going down by what, -600. Okay, we need to go one semitone up. So this is going to be -500. And let's have a listen to how that sounds.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save
Okay, so in terms of our guide and our dub, I can move this to be a low-pitched vocal, and I'm also going to bring in my formant, and let's drop this. Let's drop it here for now, and let's just see how that sounds. So that's something that can just be kind of tucked in as a layer. Now for this one, I just want it to match the timing. That's going to be fine. Now for these two, and remember, we can select by either using the right-click option to select our audio, or we can just select one of these events. For these ones over here, I want to be following the timing and the pitch. I'm going to set this to just 100%. So now what's happening, we changed the lead vocal section over here. We changed this completely, and we rendered that tuning into it. So if we listen to these two against each other, let's go back to this one. I'm going to just temporarily take off the match pitch. Let's have a listen to this section over here.
My heart is an ocean.
Okay, so if I want it to follow the new tuning, all I have to do is enable the match pitch. And that's pretty much it.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
Okay, now for this one, I want to do the same thing. I just have to enable the match pitch. And now these three vocals, or rather these two vocal doubles, are now following the new tuning that we basically rendered into the lead vocal.
My heart is an ocean.
Now what I want to do is I want to adjust the timing a little bit. So let's go to lead vox 2. This is set to 33 milliseconds. Let's tighten this up much more. You can see with this overlay how this kind of snaps in place. Let's actually go for broke. Let's go even a little bit tighter. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I can select the event over here. It's going to be the same thing on this one. So I think that looks pretty good. We have our lead vox 3. Let's tighten this one up a little bit. Just looking for these to kind of snap in line. There we go. So now what have we done here? We changed the tuning on our lead vocal. We rendered that tuning in, and then we basically time and pitch aligned our vocal doubles. And this was 2 tracks, but it could have easily been 10 tracks and it would have followed just the same. Then we took a low harmony track. We haven't really done much with this with the exception of matching the timing. So maybe something that we could do. Let's solo this one out. And I want to play from here.
My heart is an ocean.
Let me just drop the formant. Let's see what that sounds like creatively.
My heart is an ocean.
Now let's bring in the other one, which was a duplicate that we made of this.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
Okay, I could also bring this formant shift higher if I wanted to.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
Bring the other one in.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
Okay, and then in context with the music.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
And then when you're done and you want to render that, we have the option to just render these event effects, or if you wanted to destructively render it, we would just bounce them. In this case, I'm just going to render the event effects, and again, you can find that in your macros tab, audio editing, and then event effects. That's it. It's all been processed. We've rendered this. If I was doing this in a real scenario, I would have done this on a backup layer and left my original audio files untouched. But that's pretty much it. Now we have our final product.
My heart is an ocean. Nothing can save it. Nothing at all.
And
So twisted and broken, lost in the storm.
so it's really amazing what you can do, both creatively and also just if you need it to be exactly what VocAlign Pro was, a really quick option to time align something. We have the newly updated algorithms that are coming from Revoice Pro. They sound incredible. And I wouldn't have any issue using these on a vocal that's really upfront in a mix, as opposed to the older philosophy that I had with using VocAlign Pro was usually if I had a stack of things that were buried and maybe they had saturation and a lot of things on them, those would be the things that I would use VocAlign Pro, because if there was any artifacts, they would kind of squeeze through the cracks and it wouldn't be audible in the context of a full mix. But like I said, using it in Studio One, it's an absolute pleasure. You can render and restore You can go back to whatever work that you needed to do. Very easy. Once you kind of get the hang of things, either selecting the events in Studio One or right-clicking in the actual dub track, you can select these different tracks over here, and then each one, you have the ability to adjust its parameters independently and individually. And it really makes sense to kind of get under the hood and fully understand what these different modes do for target modes and your pitch ranges, your transpose, your formant shifts, because you can get some really awesome creative effects, things that I used to turn to maybe Melodyne or Little Alter Boy or even Auto-Tune to kind of flatten out formants and mess with things creatively in a modern vocal production context. A lot of these things can be done directly from within VocAlign Ultra right now, and then once you're happy with them, you can just render them and move along. But fantastic job from the folks at Synchro Arts. I will definitely be doing a lot more content on this moving forward, so please do keep an eye on that. But anyways, gets 2 thumbs up from me. It's an absolutely fantastic product. I 100% recommend doing the update if you're sitting on the fence about it. That's all the time I've got available for today. I hope that you enjoyed this content. If you did, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll do my absolute best to get back to you. And as always, we will catch you in the next video. Cheers.